Mike Barba. I'm the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association. PCA, over the last years, have really been trying to work towards our legislative agenda. We know that what's important for the community and for really the constituency of chiropractic industry in PA is for us to have a legislative agenda. So to that end, we've brought in some key players within our organization to help us actually execute that goal. That we've been working on delegation for almost 8 years now to get it passed, and we're in a really good spot for this. But what's next after delegation? There's scope that we're working on. There's conservative care first. I think we'll coalesce into something that's going to help us ensure that chiropractic is protected into the future. So today I'd like to introduce you to Jessica Treichler. She's one of our liaisons, and Tim Faircloth. Both of them are our official feet on the ground, actually I should say feet in the Capitol, knocking on doors, making relationships, and really trying to get out there and share what's happening. They'll also be connecting with you and really trying to get that grassroots effort going. So why don't we go ahead and start off with basics. Jessica, why don't you tell us about yourself, tell us how you got here and why you love chiropractic so much.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Mike. I do some advocacy work for a nonprofit organization, and I'm actually a physical therapist assistant. My husband's a chiropractor. We own a multidisciplinary clinic in central Pennsylvania, and he's seeing things happen within chiropractic and said, hey, why don't you volunteer with PCA and trying to get some movement, House Bill 1106.
Our other team member here is Tim Faircloth. Now, Tim has been with us for a little over 5-ish months. Tim, is that correct?
4 months.
4 months, but who's counting? And so Tim he's actually a part-time legislative person who has a pretty interesting background. Tim, do you want to share about you, share how you got here, and share what your focus is?
Sure. So, hello, I'm Tim Faircloth. I'm a legislative liaison with the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association. I have experience at every level of government so far in my career, local, state, and federal government, as well as every level of campaign as well. So that brings both sides of the coin to the table, legislative and political. And really, I had my life changed by seeing my chiropractor. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease and I played football. So I went in to see my chiropractor, and the adjustments he was able to make truly changed my life. And when I moved back to the area here in Harrisburg and I was looking for a chance to really use my skills and put them to work, I wanted to work for an association that had a mission that I believed in. And I felt like chiropractors had changed my life and made it better. And I wanted to help put my skills to use to make chiropractic care better.
One of the things that people may not understand, or they think that legislative and politics, although I guess not in today's day and age, is really a couple times a year that we have to focus on that. The truth is that to be really effective as an association, to be effective as an industry, we need to be really there at the Capitol doing a lot of business. So what I'd like you guys to do is talk about what is advocacy. What is it that you do on behalf of the PCA when you're actually going to the Capitol? And why is it important to actually have boots on the ground there?
So advocacy is, we're fighting for the rights of chiropractic care within our state. The Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association, we're focused on the Commonwealth itself. And when I go to Harrisburg and I'm speaking with different legislators or staff in the office, what I do is I always want to educate them certain issues that are taking place. Most importantly is our House bill. So I've been working the House side of things, and our House Bill 1106, removing burdens for chiropractors, deals with delegation and our ability to delegate tasks within our offices. We're the only state in the nation that unfortunately doesn't have that right, which is, I find it to be truly absurd. It's not a level playing field here in the Commonwealth when it comes to different areas of healthcare. So really, we want to try to level the playing field through our advocacy, and by mobilizing chiropractors, getting them into the Capitol, having them talk about their expertise and what they do every day. That's really what we need to make an impact. And I think me being there is one thing, but having the people who are doing this every day and are experts in the issues, having them come in and share their stories with legislators is truly invaluable. I can be there to point them in the right direction, to give them notes about certain things, the legislator of the district that we're meeting with. But ultimately, when it comes to advocacy, we need chiropractors to get involved and tell their story, because they're the ones that impact, they're the ones that create jobs, they're the ones that get the economy moving in these local districts. And really, they're the ones that vote. So when legislators hear that face to face, it truly leaves a lasting impact. And that's really our main approach to advocacy.
Jess, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I have to say that I was so impressed with our advocacy day, and it was my first advocacy day in June of 2025, and how many chiropractors showed up. So Tim and I have discussed things, and we want to be there on almost a monthly basis while our legislators are in session this coming year for 2026. And I think it's so important. Our goal is to be able to walk into the Capitol and have legislators and their staffers recognize us and say, oh yeah, they're with the PCA. The PCA is really showing up. I wonder why. If we haven't hit their offices, we want them to see us on a monthly basis. So they're saying they're hard at work. Yeah, I think it's just really important, like Tim said, that it's not just us two going to the Capitol, whether it's a monthly basis or, however frequent we're there. It's really important for the chiropractors to show up, because you guys have the personal experience. We can share stories, but we aren't the practitioners. I don't think people realize, and this is a general statement, not just for chiropractors, how powerful their voices are. So that's really the goal for this year for our advocacy work.
Yeah, you know what I think I was struck by? So I've gone to now 2 Day on the Hills, and we really tried to ramp up our Day on the Hill. Prior, we would actually bring a lunch, which was provided by one of our chiropractors, and that was fantastic. But it really didn't feel like we were driving so much as we were just there at the Hill. So the second time that we done it, last time, the one that Jessica was at, is we had a press conference. We were very organized about the way that we went out and knocked on doors. But really what this team's goal is, and what my goal is, obviously, as executive director of this organization, is to empower you to really speak on your behalf. It is sometimes intimidating, especially when you look at our Capitol building, which is gorgeous. And as you're walking up those steps, and there's a million of those steps, and you got to go through security, and you walk into this grand rotunda and you go, wow, I didn't know that this was PA. It almost feels like it's something that should be down in DC. And our politics work the exact same way. We need to have access, to have influence. We need to build relationships, to grow our voice. It's important that we put forth information that is clear, and really be honest brokers of the benefit and the efficacy of chiropractic. And while Tim, Jess, and I can totally do that all day, it hits different when it's a chiropractor who is a job creator in their community, who is rooted to the deeper relationship of a community. And so when we're talking about the legislature, I just recently drove up to New York. So I went through all the towns north. And you see up there, as you see these very small towns, they too have representatives up there. And those representatives have power. And if we could get 2 or 3 chiropractors from that county just to reach out, to make a phone call, to send an email, to shake hands when you see them at the market, whatever, and say, hey, I really support the chiropractic agenda, it does a lot, because all of our politics is local, and it matters what we are locally. So do you guys want to elaborate on that and talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. You don't have to just make a difference in Harrisburg. It can be within your district's office. And talking to your legislator there, you can show up to events that legislators are hosting just to have a conversation. And I really appreciate, Mike, you bringing up, because it can be very intimidating walking into Harrisburg, and just intimidating because you don't know the process. Tim and I have talked about this, that we want chiropractors to be comfortable on our advocacy days, and we don't want you to think we're going to throw you to the wolves. We're going to be there to walk you through the step, and we're going to pair you with experienced people to take you around to the Capitol, learn the ropes, learn the etiquette of how you walk into a meeting, what you say, what you don't say, and those sorts of things. So yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up. And again, it's not just important at the Capitol, but at the district office as well.
Tim, one of the things that I think is really interesting is, I think sometimes we think that the preeminent kind of communication source is the chiropractor. But if you have a staff in the office, make sure that they're aware of what their power is to speak on behalf. Okay, to speak to your patients about some of the things that are happening and getting them to advocate, because obviously if they come to you for chiropractic, they understand already the value of chiropractic. So if they want to protect their access to chiropractic and frankly the future of chiropractic, having them actually be able to articulate some of the messaging and or taking some of the one pagers, which I'm going to talk about the podcast in a second and talk about the one pagers that we're putting out for those. But Tim, can you talk a little bit more about what it means to really engage and what kind of engagement are we looking for? Do you have to have all the key factors? Is it enough to say, hey, I'm a constituent and this is important to me? You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I want to say, to the last point, you're absolutely right. And I think actually district office outreach might be even a little more crucial than visiting the Capitol, believe it or not. Mainly because you're in the district where they live and where their voters live and where businesses are and commerce is taking place within their district and their local economy. So it's really hitting home for the legislator in that sense. But when it comes to how we want to touch base with these legislators, really, you mentioned getting patients involved or even subordinate staff involved. The more the merrier. I mean, we're talking politics here, and everything is in numbers. And the more that we have, the better chance that we have to get the ball rolling. And really, hearing from patients is great because these are folks who have developed a trust with their chiropractor to allow them to come in, get adjusted on a weekly, monthly basis. And this is trust that has been developed, and they know when they're communicating with the legislator, they know that this person has trust within a business owner in their district. And these are people who keep the economy going. So the more the merrier. Everybody that we can get to reach out, the better, because these are people who are affecting the local economy and these are voters. So if a legislator has 10 or 15 voters and saying, this is an issue we're passionate about, this is impacting our district directly, our local economies being impacted, we're losing jobs, they're going to listen. I think district outreach is crucial. Now, going in, making the effort and being in Harrisburg is important too, because it just shows the passion. It puts the passion in action, and it really shows how much these people care, how organized we are in our efforts, and how much they truly mean to us. And we show that through our advocacy and our organization. So I think touching base at home, touching base at the Capitol, if you can't get in front of somebody, the quick and easiest way to really make a difference is pick up the phone and make a call. Even if you can't get the ear of the legislator, it's important that you leave a message with the staffer you're speaking with, because they're the ones who have the ear to the legislator. So if you're in a position where you can't travel, you can't get around, simple things like sending it a quick email or picking up the phone and making a call can make the difference in the world that you wouldn't believe.
So I'm going to put a cheap plug for the podcast. Hopefully everybody's listening to the podcast. But one of the things that you have as an access to the podcast is we have a series called the Deep Dive Series, which is peer-reviewed studies speaking of chiropractic and its place in the larger healthcare system. We have now about 22 episodes total on the podcast. Each of the Deep Dive series has an infographic that goes with it that can be absolutely shared with your staff. It can be shared with your patients. It is a full-throated articulation of why chiropractic is a good route, why conservative care is important. And if you've not checked out the podcast, please, by all means, it's called Spinal Chat. Please check it out. Check out the Deep Dive series. And in the members resource section is where you can download all of those infographics that have been made for each of those episodes that can be easily shared. This is an item that if you had that on your desk or in your hand and you go to your legislator, here, I just want you to have this to make sure that we're educating about chiropractic and why it's scientifically proven to be a healthy alternative to a lot of pharmacological interventions and the standard process of medicine. But in a lot of our rural communities, we're seeing hospital systems struggling and shutting down. We're seeing that there are healthcare deserts within our state of PA, and especially in the rural communities. And chiropractors are at times the only practitioner within a reasonable distance of care. And so we need to bridge the gap in chiropractic from us being just adjusters, just the rack 'em and crack 'em, to really a whole health approach to your health journey. We're really excited about that. We have a date for our new advocacy day this year, and that's going to be June the 9th. Does somebody want to share what the advocacy day is like, what actually generally happens on that day, and how we want as many people as we possibly can to come and be a part of that?
So, like I said, my first day was in June of 2025, and like Mike said, it was very well ran and very well organized. We start out with like a brief meeting in the morning and go into legislative meetings. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, did we have between 20 and 30 meetings this past time?
30 meetings plus door knocks.
Okay. And by 30 meetings, I mean with legislators themselves or their staffers, which they were all, I think, were very productive from the feedback that we received. And then, as Mike said, we had door knockers. I don't know what the plans are for this year, but last year, as Mike mentioned, there was a press conference. We stood in the rotunda steps for that press conference. It's a great day to come out and get your feet wet and tour the Capitol.
Now, at the PCA, we also did a second advocacy day for sports chiropractic specifically. Mm-hmm. And that one was, we actually had a team that were doing adjustments for the staff of the Capitol, for people that worked at the Capitol, as well as had a team that went out and actually did advocacy. And we'll probably do that again this year as well, because we think it's important to be physically there. We also think it's important it was funny, there was a guy that came in, he had never been adjusted before, and he was so nervous. He thought he was going to be hurt. He didn't know what to expect, but all of his other coworkers said, come on, and the peer pressure brought him in. He filled out the paperwork, and the guy walked away saying, I didn't know, and I wish I knew. And it's funny that we think in today's day and age, especially if you are a chiropractor or if you grew up in chiropractic, of course chiropractic, right? But there are a lot of people who have never had the opportunity to try chiropractic. And that's what we're also being about when we're there physically at the Capitol. It is, yes, advocacy. It is, yes, working towards our goal, but it is also, yes, demystifying chiropractic in the way that we go about actually sharing who we are and what we are. Keep in mind, most people like doing business with people they like. And so I think it's important that we show a way to demonstrate who we are, our professionalism as chiropractors, but also what we own in regards to musculoskeletal. Now, Jess, I'm going to throw back at you. You're a PT assistant by training. Yes. And I think your husband had an integrated office and you'd worked within that office. There's a lot of back and forth between us and the PTs. There's a little bit of a sharks and the jets thing going on there. And I don't get it. So as a PT professional, can you talk about why you think chiropractic is a great source of care? Obviously, you married into it, so it's an important thing. But beyond that, can you give us more about your philosophy of the integrated care, of where chiropractic and PT really land, and why it's okay that there are two of them? We don't need to be constant at each other.
Yeah, so I always tell everybody there are certain things that chiropractors do way better than physical therapists ever could. And like Mike said, I don't see why we are butting heads and why we shouldn't be working more together. The integrative care that we can offer if we would all come together is amazing. I started seeing a chiropractor at the age of 15, and I still remember that feeling of walking on air after you left the office. At that same time, I was also doing physical therapy because I had a major back injury. But the manipulations that chiropractors do, just physical therapy can't bring that. So I think we work so well together. And I wish more clinicians, whether it's MDs, DOs, PTs, chiropractors, would realize that we're better together than apart.
I agree. Tim, can you talk about what the PCA's legislative goals are and really what our focus on is this year with our legislative agenda?
Absolutely, Mike. First and foremost, we have our House Bill 1106, removing administrative burdens for chiropractors. So right now, up until right now, I've only been here about 4 months and some change. The PCA's made great progress so far introducing this bill into the House, having it sitting in committee, and the outreach that we've been able to make to committee members and Chairman Frank Burns, who sits as the chairman on the House Professional Licensure Committee. We can really get that bill through committee that would be a huge win for us as an association. I think as of right now, that's our top priority. We've been working on this bill for about 8 years. We think it's really time for this to get moving. And the PCA's made great progress so far introducing this bill into the House, having it sitting in committee, and the outreach that we've been able to make to committee members and Chairman Frank Burns, who sits as the chairman on the House Professional Licensure Committee. We can really get that bill through committee. That would be a huge win for us as an association. I think as of right now, that's our top priority. We've been working on this bill for about 8 years. We think it's really time for this to get moving, and we want to focus about this being a workforce crisis issue, which it really is. Here in Pennsylvania, chiropractors that leave this state to practice elsewhere than we do that state and help contribute to the Commonwealth. We look at this bill and their right to delegate therapeutic exercises as a workforce crisis bill. It's when this decision was made, the Cavado versus State Farm decision was made, it was really a job killer. So really, we look at this bill as being a job creator and a sustainable piece for our economy here. Now, aside from our House bill, we also are working a sister bill in the Senate to mirror what we're doing in the House. A companion bill in the opposing chamber has about a 40% greater chance of becoming law because of that. And we have bipartisan support. This is in no way, shape, or form a partisan issue. This is an issue that is a Pennsylvanian issue, and it affects each and every one of us. Not only is it killing jobs, but it's killing care in a lot of places too. So that's one of our top priorities at the moment, is getting that moving through committee in the House and hopefully getting it over to the Senate.
Jessica, we're also working on our scope of practice and really modernizing that. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Talk about really what our goals with scope are. And you know what, we go ahead and claim it. Let's talk about how old scope is. Scope is older, the last time it was updated, than everybody on this call but me. Why don't we go ahead and if you want to speak more to that, Jessica, I'd appreciate that.
Almost, Mike, almost. I'm 2 years older. So we are working with a senator's office introduce a scope of practice. We definitely have a sponsor for it. We are just in the middle of hammering out potential issues. So our legislative committee is working on that, and we will be meeting with their office, hopefully to get a final draft ready to submit as a bill. Obviously, that is very important. I suspect that it's going to take a while. Most bills, I believe, take about 7 years. So it's a long process. But yeah, that is definitely a big priority of ours, getting that introduced this year. What I will say is the end of December is when session is over. So it would have to be reintroduced in January of 2027 if it would not pass through both chambers and the governor sign it into law. So we have a long road ahead of us as far as that, but we're very excited that we are here and that we are working out those issues and can introduce it and for everybody to see what we have.
Thank you, Jessica, for that. Along that line, it's also important for the PCA that we try to work very closely with the state licensure committee board as well, because it's important that we're able to have that communication. We believe that a lot of what some of the update to scope is something that's already galvanized within the existing scope structure. And so that's why it is so important that when we're talking about advocacy, the advocacy is just not just to the Capitol, we're also doing it to the state board, we're doing it to regulatory bodies to ensure that we're really connecting and driving home what's important in regards to scope. But it is something, it's a fight that may be a long fight, but it's a fight that's worth having, because frankly, there are things in our scope that limit us from doing some of the things that other states do. As a matter of fact, PA 48th in the nation in regards to one of the most reductive scopes. And so we're really trying to expand that and make that an opportunity going forward. Some of the other things that we're working on as well is we're working on copay reform. We're working on conservative first, which we affectionately call CCF squared around here. There's a white paper coming out for that soon. We are looking at a response to opioid overprescription and really pharmacological overprescription. What's interesting, and I've come over this in data multiple times, and again, another plug for the podcast, you would have heard this a few times on the podcast, but depending on where you choose to go first in regards to your care, if you have lower back pain, if you go the medical route as opposed to going the chiropractic route, you're 79% more likely going the medical route to end up with some form of invasive and or surgery on the back end. Whereas if you were to go with the chiropractic route, I don't know about you, but for me, that is a stark comparison. I can't even wrap my head completely around that. And so it's important that we educate people in regards to what that means and why is that. There has to be a better way. And the better way is really, and something I know that Jessica's passionate about, is about that informed consent, that informed knowledge going in, and what chiropractic has not done particularly well. And I've only been with the organization now going on my third year, is we've not done well really showing the comparison of why chiropractic is such a great alternative to really the kind of the drone-like understanding of what healthcare is and what it means. I want to know what kind of feedback you guys get once you go to the Capitol, talk to a legislator. What kind of feedback do you guys get behind the scenes? Would you like to share some feedback that you hear when you do talk to legislators and their staff?
Sure. So when I'm at the Capitol and I'm engaging with different offices, people are always very accepting and letting us in their office, and they want to hear what we have to say. And oftentimes receptive. People don't really know what's going on, especially legislators, believe it or not, until you tell them. Like, you have to actually reach out, make contact, and engage with legislators before, they really know something's an issue at times. Like, I always use this example. My grandmother would complain about a pothole in the street, and she would complain, and she complained all day one day. And I asked her when I stopped over, I said, "Grandma, did you reach out to the councilman and let him know?" And she said, "No, that's his job." I said, "How do you expect him to know if the constituents didn't tell him about it?" So really, we want to go in there and inform these people about what's going on, the legislators and the staff members. And once they hear that, they're very receptive usually. And oftentimes we're enlightening them to things that they did not know about. And even if say there's a bill that we're in there talking about, and Jessica actually could talk on this as well. "Hey, Representative, did you happen to know that this is actually in your bill, that your bill would enable this to happen?" A lot of times you'd be surprised. They have no idea. And those are the kind of things that really make this special and make it worth it. And then everybody, they always say thank you, and they're very thankful that we came in and shared things with them, regardless of where they sit on the aisle or on a particular issue. So usually feedback is great. And
can I just reiterate that legislators don't know what they don't know, just like you and I. You don't know what you don't know. And that's the importance of advocacy work and educating your legislator or staffer about whatever the issue is. And as Tim said, there's been plenty of times that I'll take a bill into the prime sponsor and point out, "Hey, did you think about X, Y, or Z?" And they'll look at me and be like, "No, they're humans just like us." And that even goes back to just having a conversation. I know it's intimidating sometimes to meet people you just don't know, let alone a legislator. It's so important, though. It really is just going in there and pointing out issues, whether it's about a bill or not, and bringing those issues to their attention.
Jess, do you want to share about your secret weapon that you take with you when you go sometimes to the Capitol? Jess is a mother, I think, of lots of kids, but she has one that's still at home. And why don't you share? I think some people go, "Oh, I'm going to have to put my kids into daycare, and I'm going to have to find a sitter and do all these things." And why don't you share about how sometimes you're able to do your advocacy work?
Yeah, so right now I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4, but my youngest is not in school yet. And yeah, he's become my secret weapon at the Capitol. And it's funny because a lot more people will engage sometimes. I have legislators that don't necessarily recognize me, but they sure recognize my son and they want to interact with him. And it's funny because he's very standoffish. He's my stranger danger child, but they try. I love it. And there's been plenty of lobbyists that are like, "That's a great secret weapon to have." But yeah, it's fun. And don't get me wrong, there are times that I have a job to do and I want to go there without him and do my job. But there's other times that I don't have a babysitter and he tags along happily.
I think, though, that that's a really important lesson is the most important part of advocacy is not what you wear. It's not who you bring with you. It's that you do it. And really the key here is we're looking for people who are willing to do that. So we're going to announce something that is a pet project of mine and the team is working towards. We really want to get chiropractors who maybe are part-time retired, chiropractors who have a little extra time on their hands or are fully retired, who are interested in being part of the advocacy process, who want to come and knock on doors, because Jess and Tim have said none of the three of us are actually chiropractors. And it's important to have somebody there that is a subject matter expert. While we can guide and shape the conversation, we certainly know a whole lot about the issues that we're talking about. Having someone that can speak on that behalf, we invite any semi-retired, retired, part-time chiropractor who is interested in getting involved at this level that is local to Harrisburg or the region to be a part of our advocacy efforts. So you reach out to Tim, reach out to Jess. Their emails will be at the bottom of this video at the end, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes for the podcast portion of this. But if you want to get involved, come out, give it a try. Give it a try, see if you like it. I think you might. I think it's pretty heady knowing that you're in the place where the direction of the state and all the budget dollars of the state is actually being managed and run right from that area. So it's an important place, and I invite everyone to be a part of that. So please reach out. Okay, so let's go and wrap up. This has been a really great conversation. I appreciate both of you. I would like if you guys can give me a 1-minute elevator pitch. I'm kind of putting you on the spot of why advocate, how we need you, and what's the first step. Jess, why don't we start with you, and then we'll finish up with Tim, and I'll say goodbye.
Yeah, again, your voice is powerful, and a lot of people don't realize just how powerful. Sometimes it takes all of 2 or 3 constituents picking up the phone and calling their legislator, whether, again, if that's at the district office or in Harrisburg, it doesn't matter as long as it's getting back to that legislator. And calls are way more effective than sending an email. Emails are effective, especially if they're personalized, but picking up the phone really means you care, right? And there's more power in numbers, as always. So yeah, that's why we need you.
Tim?
Yeah, so we're advocating here to save and advance chiropractic care in Pennsylvania. And that's really what we're doing every time we go to the Capitol, or every time we meet with someone in their district, or every time we attend a fundraiser. We're doing that on behalf of chiropractic care in the entire Commonwealth. So really, that's why we advocate, because these are things that we believe in. This is an industry that I've chosen to dedicate myself and fight for. Chiropractors want to get involved, and they want to advocate because this is what they do for a living, and they put food on the table. And in order to advance and keep things going, we have to keep people engaged and remove barriers that take place within offices, in every office across the Commonwealth. So in order for things like that to happen, this is the advocacy is the route that you need to take. And really, the first steps of advocacy are being committed, announcing your commitment to something, and announcing your commitment to advocacy, and believing in yourself and thinking, hey, not only are you fighting for yourself or for the industry that helped get you where you are, but you're fighting for everybody else in the Commonwealth who walks in the same shoes as you do as a chiropractor. So really, yeah, advocating and committing to advocate are huge and vital when it comes to getting these things done.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate that, Tim, and thank you, Jess, for both being here. When I joined the PCA as the executive director, my goal was to fix, I think, what was a broken system. And what I found more and more was I found some really hardworking, dedicated people who, because most of them are 98% of them are independent entrepreneurs, they feel sometimes isolated. They feel that the problems that they're facing alone, and they feel that, does my voice really matter? I'm just going to put my head down and just keep doing my job because that's what I know to do. And when I was building a team here at the association and trying to build our direction and our future, you're not alone. The PCA is here for you. This team is here for you. The entire staff of the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association, as well as the board and all of the committees that we have, are here for you. And please let us know how we can help. Please let us know how we can empower the future. And please join us because we need you. So on behalf of the Pennsylvania Chiropractic Association, Jessica and Tim and the entire staff, I want to thank you for listening and watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.